So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining Nigel and I on this. I think it's going to be a really important. It is a really important talk, all about breathing for healing. And I asked Nigel to come and do this talk for us and talk about how to breathe correctly for healing. And I mentioned a little bit to Nigel earlier, but I'll say it's on the recording here that when I used to be a reflexologist working in clinics, I would be working on someone's feet, as some of you know what that was like, because I was your therapist, a reflexologist, and I'd look at someone's body lying down in front of me, and I could see nearly everybody has very, very shallow breathing, and breathing is so important. And I know that that makes a massive difference to the healing, to the workings of the body, to stress levels, to anxiety levels, to correct blood flow, and all the rest of it for health. But it's not something I specifically teach. And as many of you know on the Pain-Free Method, I just talk about deep and slow. That's as far as it goes with me, as you know. But Nigel is an expert on breathing, and so I was really excited and very happy that he agreed to come on and give us this amazing talk about how to do it properly. And he's the expert. So I met Nigel very recently, actually, at a most amazing World of Wellbeing festival. And it was just recently an amazing festival that some of you have seen. I put the link out to that, the Wellbeing Festival, and there were all sorts of amazing people. And I met Nigel, and as soon as he started talking about breathing, and he's going to talk a little bit about forest bathing and what is that, but mostly about how to breathe correctly and what's all that about. I knew I had to have him on to a talk and share with you all. So without further ado, as they say, Nigel, all yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Althea. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us tonight. So I'm going to give you a little talk, a little bit of information, a bit of education around breathing, what's good breathing, what's poor breathing, and how that can impact our general health, our mental and our physical health. I'll just give you a little bit background. I've been kind of teaching breathing, not full-time, but I started about 11 years ago. And the reason I got into breathing was I woke up in the middle of the night, just choking, not being able to breathe. Had no idea why or what was happening, because I had not really been ill since I was about 4. So I've not even had man flu, I don't believe. So I woke up and I was like, dead scared, because I didn't know what he was, and then I couldn't sleep. I lost my voice, it's panicky. This was going on, so I went to see the doctor. They couldn't find anything wrong with me, but I couldn't really get hold of, control it. And then, as you do, 2 o'clock in the morning, one frustrated night, I Googled and found something about a breathing course. And thought, that's interesting, because like everybody, I've breathed all my life and life's been pretty fine and dandy. And it was on in Pimlico the week after. It's called Buteyko, which is the prime base of my breathing that I teach. He was a Russian-Ukrainian guy in the 40s and 50s. He discovered that anyone who was in pain or really suffering poorness had started predominantly breathing through their mouth, or using their mouth as part of the breathing. And he experimented and found that actually stopping the mouth breathing, getting people to breathe well and slow and deep, as Althea said, and likely made a huge difference to people's health. So that's been the way I kind of got into it. And I've got to say that the breathing and a combination of going down into the local nature reserve at the end of my road in Kingston, North Kingston, each afternoon helped me get better. And the reason I got ill, I think, was just stress. I kind of deal with it. I'm quite laid back. It doesn't really show, but actually my adopted children just become teenagers at the time, and it was difficult with the attachment, and they got special needs and what have you, and epilepsy and a number of combinations of things. And I was working in a very sales environment where I wanted to do the right thing for the client, but the some of the other guys I worked with didn't. So that brought on a lot of stress for me, because I like to do the right thing. So yeah, anyway, that's a bit of background. So I'm going to start the presentation now and share my screen. So bear with me. There's at the moment, Alfia, you've disabled the sharing. So I don't know if I can send a request. Hey, here we go. Brilliant, thank you. Can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up if you can see my screen. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, the joy of breathing properly and what it can do to heal. There's a kind of a quote that's around a lot. Breathing is a medicine. It is actually free to us, but it's only free if you can access it like anything else. So I'm going to be talking to you about why it's so important. And as I say, talking about some of the things to look out for and then how to do it well. So the breath basically is at the heart of everything that we do. So it impacts our sleep, our heart and circulation, our immune system, our hormone system, dealing with pain, which Alfia is obviously the expert in, pelvic floor function, and I'll explain some of that later, thoughts, memory, moods, anxieties, basically everything the breath has an impact on, because it's a core part of pulling together our core parts of our body. And there's three key systems that operate in keeping us healthy, and that kind of generate, if you like, how we deal with things that happen in our life, both physically and mentally. And I don't want to teach you to suck eggs, but the breath impacts the limbic system. So that's where our whole homeostasis in the hypothalamus actually resides. Also affects our emotions in the amygdala and our memory. And that certainly interacts, as we know, with our hormone system. And of course, at the heart of it, and what links all of these things, the three core systems, is the autonomic nervous system. So that's quite often referred to as the sympathetic system, which is the flight, freeze, or fight part of our system. And then there's the parasympathetic system, which is where we rest and digest. And how the breathing affects these is that when we inhale, we're in the bottom, the sympathetic division. So when we inhale, we're preparing ourselves to deal with stress, any stressful situation. So in the olden days, going back a long time, we'd have been alert for very good reason. We'd have been alert because there's a saber-toothed tiger or a mammoth around the corner. Or some oppositional tribe or something that was trying to steal our land. These days, obviously, we don't worry about those things so much, and those dangerous situations don't occur as much. But these days, we'd probably get into that part of fight or flight, down to things like, well, what does that person think of me, or social media, or the news, and they're things that cause people to get into that state. And of course, the exhalation is where everything starts to work. So when you're on the exhalation, you salivate, so your mouth doesn't go dry, your heart rate slows, your stomach digests, your reproductive organs and all your vascular system works much better. And the interesting thing is that they only work on the exhalation. So your body only rests and heals on the out breath. So if you're someone who breathes a lot, you know, you're in and out, and you're hardly ever in the rest and digest, your exhalation is very short, your body's not going to heal very well. And it's more likely you're going to spend more time in the inhalation, just as much, and you're sending cortisol, adrenaline, and you're causing inflammation in your body. So the only way to counteract that is to make sure that you breathe well and on the out breath. And then your body will, for example, your body will digest food better. Okay. So there's many acute symptoms of overbreathing. There's respiratory that I had, where I was short of breath. But there's other signs: sighing, yawning, sniffing, an irritating cough. And I won't go through them all, but all of these are a lot of physical ones here, but there are emotional. So if you tend to be anxious, or you have some anger or panic, crying, phobias, they will tend to send you into an overbreathing hyperventilation system where you're taking too many breaths and you're probably breathing from the chest, and you're possibly, because you want more air, you automatically, your body tells your mouth to open, which is what we're trying to avoid. Here's a lot more, you know, cognition, our ability to concentrate at work, etc., are all affected by breathing. And it's a kind of a vicious circle, really, because you're anxious, you're going to breathe more, which is going to affect your ability to concentrate. So if you're doing exams at school, for example, you know, it's just vicious. You're going to be holding your breath, which is a poor way to breathe, or you're going to be in your chest, upper chest, and breathing too much. And I mentioned earlier the it's going to touch on the diaphragm area, and that area of our body, the around there with the muscles, because musculoskeletal is also affected very much by breathing. So there's things like the shape of our face as we grow through life will change and develop based on how we breathe, and I'll touch on that a little bit. Our dental hygiene. So if you're a good breather, you're more likely to have good teeth. You're more likely to have a squarer jaw and enough room for your teeth to grow as you're growing up. You're going to have a strong core as well. So as we get older, you know, our core muscle, diaphragm, that is a big band of muscle around our body. And if we don't breathe well, like any muscle, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that will affect our ability to stand up straight, to move well, on our whole ability. So you're a lot more likely to start bending, etc., bending over and suffering as a result. And as I said at the bottom, the autonomic nervous system and that whole pH balance between the alkali and the acid will disturb our homeostasis, and cause inflammation throughout the body. Now, there's lots of reasons for dysfunctional breathing. Mine at the time was definitely stress, 11 years ago. But it can start very early on. I had a client who didn't breathe very well. I did some exercises, and she took me back to her birth trauma, actually, and she struggled to breathe when she was coming out. She thought she was going to die. She was 43 years old, but she recalled this. And so we worked on that before we could progress very far on the breathing. But actually, feeding habits in babies, again, no judgment here, but if you're breastfed and you start to eat chewy food and hard food at a younger age, your muscles and the shape of your face is going to predispose it to good breathing. If you're not breastfed, or you eat lots of soft food, or you have lots of dummies, and you don't use all your muscles as they're meant to be, the likelihood is that you'll end up with a slightly longer face, you'll have a chin that's further back, and your airway will be restricted. You'll have a very narrow airway. I'm sure we know lots of people, if we start looking at them. Unfortunately, I look at everybody face. which is a beautiful thing on one hand. Another one is I'm being very critiquing them as I look at them. But all these things can resist and cause problems with breathing and swallowing and what have you. I've had a couple of clients recently, a 15-year-old and 17-year-old, who I did a lot of work on. And the 15-year-old, I kind of did a bit of work with. And then I said to his mum, I really think I can do a job, but the bigger thing is it's just something not right, because he's not changing. And she went and found he was tongue-tied. He had his adenoids out. He'd had his tonsils out. He'd seen all these ear, nose, throat specialists. And then they discovered he was tongue-tied. And he had his tongue-tie operation in February. And he's like a new boy, they tell me. He's swallowing, he's eating, he's sleeping, his focus and concentration. So it just shows you some of this stuff can help. Lots of reasons here. I get clients with COVID-19 who just, if you have a trauma, it can trigger anxiety, and that will rewire you to breathe differently. So the work I do is to rewire back and get back to where we should be. And that rewiring is a combination of getting the diaphragm to connect to the lungs, to connect to all this area, and to connect to your breathing receptors that are in your medulla in the brain stem. So that's kind of what I'm trying to link when I do it. Processed foods is bad for breathing. Stimulants, as we know, lack of exercise, lack of sleep. The belief that it's good to take big breaths, that is a big issue. It's not good to, there'll be some yogi breathing where they get you to breathe through your nose and out through your mouth. It's okay for the moment, but it's not a way you want to live your life breathing, because you need to keep your mouth shut, as we'll talk about that more as we go on. So I was speaking about facial development. So on the left there, the crooked nose, and you can see the setback jaw, that person will certainly have problems breathing. They'll have problems swallowing. They'll have an overbite. There won't be enough room for all the teeth. They'd certainly need to have teeth extracted. And the small airways will lead to, in time, poor sleep. If very early on, actually, sleep is a big issue in children these days. And it's not just because of all the blue light they experience. It's that kids are sleeping less and less, because more and more kids are not learning to breathe and don't grow up breathing and eating properly. But smaller airways will cause you problems and lead to sleep apnea and stuff when you're older. On the right-hand side, you know, the nose and the chin are aligned and a well-developed jaw. So that's very important. And believe it or not, pre-industrialization, if you dig up a skull 300 years plus, everyone will have perfectly formed teeth. There were no dentists in those days. Okay, people didn't live as long. They lived 40 odd years, but they discovered, and there's a book called Breath by James Nestor, who's one of the contributors to that, as the guy who taught me. And they'll tell you that dental issues is the modern thing. And sugar is obviously one of those things in our diet. But when I mean a diet, it's actually the way we eat and we develop our muscles and our bone structure as we're growing up. So yeah, it's a very strange phenomenon, but that's actual fact. So my question to you, and I'm not looking at all of you, so don't worry, is how do you breathe? Do you breathe fast? And noisy? Can you hear yourself breathe, or can you hear your partner breathe, or they hear you breathe? Shoulder and chest, so up here. Mouth. Do you sigh or yawn a lot? Do you snore? Do you talk too fast? So actually, I have to be very careful with my breath when I'm doing this presentation, because I have to slow down and remember to take a breath, because I haven't been taught to sing. So, or you breathe through the nose. Is it nice and slow? Do I use my diaphragm? Is it triggered by the abdominal muscles down here, the diaphragm? And is it silent? So here's a picture of our system. And one thing I'll say from the start, is that our mouth is part of our digestive system. So it's for eating, drinking, and of course, communicating. It is not part of our respiratory system. It's only part of our digestive system. The nose, on the other hand, is 100% respiratory. And our nose obviously plays other parts, very strong in terms of memory and attraction. So the nose links to the amygdala as well as other parts of our body. So it's very, very, very much stimulated in terms of working on memory as well and helping the memory. And as you can see, if you breathe through the mouth, you can imagine breathing through the mouth. The air goes in, doesn't get cleansed, goes straight to the back of the throat and down into bronchioles, which is not good. The other thing I'll explain in a minute is if you breathe through the mouth, you actually take in too much air as well. Whereas if you breathe in through the nose, you've got the cilium, the hairs that filter and stop lots of the rubbish getting in. And then B, you've got that nasal cavity there, which in my case is quite large, as you can see from as I turn. That contains something called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide has many uses. It's generally poisonous. These kids take these capsules these days, and it kind of gives them a mini high and what have you. And nitric oxide is also used in, is predominantly used in Viagra to help people vascular system for the blood flow. But in our nose, it does two things. It cleanses and sterilizes what comes into our nose. Also, it warms up as it works its way through the body, the air. And the other thing about nitric oxide, and again, I'll explain a little bit more in a minute. As I said, it suggested a minute ago, it actually helps the blood flow. So it keeps your cardiovascular system operating well. So it keeps the veins and the arteries well and healthy and stops any stickiness coming in your blood. So you breathe in through your nose. The other thing is about the diaphragm muscle, not the chest. If you breathe from the diaphragm, you breathe up, you feel all of your lungs. So you can see the two lungs there, they're huge. I always forget how large the lungs are. If you breathe through your mouth and from the chest, you'll only feel the kind of just under half of the upper lung. So you're not really fulfilling, you're not filling up the lungs. And interestingly enough, as you can see from that picture, most of the bronchioles and alveoli are in the bottom half of the lung. So if you're breathing through the mouth and from the chest, you're not going to fill that part. And that's the part that flows into the blood and gets pumped around the body. So you want to maximize the oxygen in the lungs. And you can only do that by using that diaphragm there that sits under the lungs, that diaphragm muscle, that curve. So that's a really important, another important reason for breathing well, the nose and diaphragm. So I touched on nasal breathing. As I hinted at there, nasal breathing increases the circulating blood oxygen and carbon dioxide levels and the nitric oxide, and improve the overall lung volumes. And to say that the oxygen, the carbon dioxide and nitric oxide is a chemical mix that we want to optimize. And I'll tell you why in a moment. Most people think carbon dioxide is a poison, but of course it is if there's too much of it. So is nitric oxide, but so is oxygen. If you give someone 100% of oxygen, they won't live very long because it can't start destroying their organs. Because at the end of the day, only 21% of the air is oxygen. But what happens if you don't breathe well, if you're a mouth breather and a chest breather, your carbon dioxide loss through your breathing through your mouth is going to be more than you require. So your carbon dioxide levels in your body, in your blood, are going to go down to maybe 1%, whereas actually what we want them to be is between 3 and 5%. And the way we maintain carbon dioxide levels at that optimum level is by just breathing out through the nose. So I was taught to run at school. I was like, get rid of the carbon dioxide. But actually, if I run now and I'm playing football later tonight, apart from when I'm speaking, I will be doing all the exercise with my mouth shut because I'm optimizing. I want to optimize the carbon dioxide and keep it in. So what happens is, as the blood flows through to the oxygen enters the hemoglobin, the heart pumps it around your body, and where it's going to hit my glutes tonight because I'm running, or where it's going to hit my hamstrings, or where it's going to hit my brain as I'm thinking about the game, I want that oxygen to be maximized. And the way that's done is by the oxygen, the carbon dioxide, and the nitric oxide all working together at the point of transference when the oxygen leaves the hemoglobin to go into those muscles. If I haven't got those levels optimized, what will happen is my muscle will say, oh, thanks very much, but that's not really enough. It's not really enough to keep going at this pace you want to, Nigel, which actually at my age isn't that quick anymore anyway, but it will want more. So what it will do, it will send a message, as a matter of course, send a message to my heart to pump quicker, to get more blood there with oxygen, and it will send a message to my brain receptors to say, you've got to open your mouth, I need more air, I need more air. So I'll be, but I know, of course, that's not going to work. So I don't do that. The way to optimize is actually to keep my mouth shut and breathe better, and I will fulfill my oxygen needs. And that's all brought about by something called the Bohr effect. And the guy called Christian Bohr, a Danish scientist, found out in 1903, believe it or not, that actually carbon dioxide is really important to breathing. So if you just look up, two things that's interesting to look up is the Bohr effect. And the other thing is if you Google mouth versus nasal breathing at some point after this, and you'll see all the evidence there is to show why nasal breathing is so important. It's not well known, even by GPs, because they're generalists, they're not specialists. Even dentists I speak to, some of them are totally naive of the impact of breathing because they just know what they were taught. So that's why nasal breathing is really, really important. The other thing is, if you breathe through the mouth, believe it or not, even though you're taking in more air, you're actually messing up the physics and the combination, the chemical makeup. So actually taking 12 breaths a minute, and the average person takes 12 to 15. A lot of people take 30 plus, who are very anxious. But if you breathe properly, which is 6 breaths a minute, 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out is optimum. You get, as you can see, you get more, even though you're taking less air in, you get more alveoli ventilation. So you get more oxygen into your lungs. So it's much more efficient. So respiration at 6 breaths a minute is found to be the optimum. And there's lots of research again on that by the European Respiratory Center, etc. Diaphragmatic breathing helps facilitate that slow respiration. And silent breathing. So a healthy breather, as you saw a moment ago, takes 4 to 6 liters of air per minute. People who are gasping or noisy breathers, you can take 2.5 times more air in if you're asthma or you've got sleep apnea. So you're going to be a noisy breather because you're forcing that air in and out. So 3 aspects to good breathing. As Alfia said earlier, it's about breathing deep, and that doesn't mean, it means from the diaphragm. It means from deep in within you. So the diaphragm, it fills your lungs up and there's less airflow. The biochemical, so that's what I spoke about in terms of the airflow, not making sure it's efficient, and the absorption and delivery of the oxygen at the other end. And that is breathing light And of course, there's impact on the psychological side of things and how it works, the autonomic nervous system, and activating the vagus nerve, which is key to our good health. And breathing slow. Rewards of good breathing: improve sleep. We know about mental chatter. I'm sure you've done lots of work and around focus and meditation and mindfulness and all those good things that also help and work in conjunction with good breathing. I did find, actually, when I used to do a meditation course, I'm training meditation as well, that a lot of people couldn't really relax during meditation because they're up here too much. And until I taught some of them to breathe, they couldn't let go at all. They were just too anxious and too much in their breathing. So it's quite hard sometimes to access some of these other tools if we don't breathe well. And I've touched on some of these things earlier. It has a major impact because it affects all those systems we were talking about earlier: the limbic system, the endocrine system, and the autonomic nervous system. So just pause for a slow, relaxed breath and consider this for a moment, if you could. A tortoise takes 4 breaths per minute. A hare takes 45 breaths per minute. We all know about the hare, the fable of the hare and tortoise. The tortoise has a heartbeat of 25. When I'm really chilled and I've done a bit of exercise, I can get mine down to 29, 30, but it tends to hover around early 40s. Average is 60 to 90. 60 to 90 is good. The hare is 160, so it's pum, pum, pum. Obviously, the tortoise takes life as it finds it, a step at a time, whereas the hare's off here, there, and everywhere, going crazy. The tortoise kind of lets life drift by, and actually, if it gets a bit of stress, just kind of pops back in its shell and kind of looks inside, like I'm sure we've been trained to in various ways by Althea or others. But of course, the hare it runs or freezes, gets knocked down, or it runs for life. And then we look at the lifespan. So we're somewhere in between there, 6 breaths per minute. And I always think, have I got so many breaths in my life? Maybe I should not use too many of them up. Don't know if that's true, same as heartbeat. But if it's true, I kind of want to be as efficient as I can. So in summary, mouth breathers are more likely to suffer from anxiety and panic attacks, suffer from poor sleep patterns, experience breathlessness, catch airborne diseases, inhale higher levels of pollution, have dental and jaw problems, have body weight challenges. On the other hand, if your nose and diaphragm, it's the total opposite. And I touched on earlier just the importance of the vagal nerve and how important that is, and the breathing works with that to stimulate, and how that works with the parasympathetic system. So some of the key ways to stimulate the vagus nerve are good breathing. I've highlighted the ones I do. Good breathing, cold exposure, which I do every morning. I have my Wim Hof cold showers to help me deal and help with my immune system and regulate my reaction to shock. Forest bathing, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, humming, singing, they're all there. And there are others, of course, but these are some of the key ones that come out. So if you can get a combination of those things and eat well, etc., it's very good. So some tips on breathing. Really become aware and mindful of your breathing, whether you're sitting, walking, or running. Is it nose or it's mouth breathing? Is it chest or diaphragm? Because you want it to be nose and you want it to be diaphragm. Even when I exercise, it's diaphragm and nose. I've taught myself that. As I ask you to sit there now, just be aware of where your tongue's located. Ideally, it should be sitting behind your top teeth, just touching the top teeth. If it's not and it's lower down, you're more likely to suffer from snoring and sleep apnea and wake up in the night because it starts to block the airways. Meditation or mindful rest is really important, and combining that with the breaths, really good. Eating windows, again, it's a bit like the 8-16 diet, but actually eating windows does help your breathing. And your breathing helps you, if you're a good breather, to want less food and to eat well. And the eating window is important because you've got to eat 3 or 4 hours and let your digestive system work before you go to bed, or you're going to get a restless sleep. Obviously, there's other things there, cool air, no blue light, etc. I recommend if you do sleep with your mouth open to get something called myotape that keeps your lips together. Forces you to breathe through your nose. Might feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but it makes a huge difference to 80% of my clients who then sleep much better, don't wake up with dry mouth, don't need to get up for a pee, and just generally sleep better. Nitric oxide I mentioned earlier, our body should produce enough of it if we breathe well. But if you want to top it up, beetroot and green leafy food helps. I take beetroot before I go off to football tonight, and sometimes I take it before I go to bed, half an hour before. Now I'm going to touch on briefly Nature's Health Service, which is the forest bathing. So that, again, is something that's I do. It's a combination of mindfulness, meditation, breath work, but in nature. So I tend to, it comes from the Japanese. It's well researched. Even over here, 11 UK universities have been researching it. And it shows that mindfulness, even in nature, is 40% more effective than mindfulness generally. So there's a lot going for it. It helps deal with all those things earlier. It really helps slow the heart rate down, balances your blood pressure, helps with concentration, helps with anxiety. So spending time in nature. And the phytoncides that come down from the trees, the chemicals, are known to boost your NK killer cells. So people who've had, in Japan, if you've had chemotherapy, or you've had a serious illness that's wiped out your immune system, they'll certainly recommend forest bathing to you. And increasingly over here, by the green social prescribing, doctors in Kingston, Richmond and the Surrey Heartland should have been recommending forest bathing to people with anxiety, depression, or post-chemo. Some of them do, but not enough. But it is growing momentum in this country. And the other thing is breathing exercises. And I want to, just check in my time, I want to show you just a simple exercise that if you go to bed at night and you just lay there, obviously you don't have to put the book you've just read on your tummy, but that was just for a visual. If you just lay for 10 minutes with your knees up and you just breathe and connect to your diaphragm, you'll find as your diaphragm goes up and down, if you focus on that, your thoughts and everything else in your body should slow down and start preparing you for a good night's sleep. So if you did that 10 minutes before you go to sleep, and actually I do it 10 minutes after I wake up in the morning while everyone else is quiet, I will just lie in bed and just prepare myself and maybe do some gratitude breaths for the day ahead, etc. That is just a real simple exercise to do. Now, if you're naturally a mouth breather, and 35% of people are mouth breathers, you've got to practice slowly, but you've got to keep your mouth shut. It's something you can do. And we'll do that in a couple of exercises in a minute. Obviously, I train people one-to-one, so I get a lot of mouth breathers, people with anxiety, long COVID kicked in, feel they need more air. So I have to work with them one-to-one because they're all different bits, but I have to rewire, tell their brain, rewire their brain and re-educate their brain that actually they don't need as much air and there's no need to panic. And actually, you know this instinctively, body, but you've forgotten it. So it's getting the mind and body connected and working together again. So let's begin some exercises. Unless anyone wants any questions, or we're going to have the questions at the end, Alfia, were we? Yep. Okay, cool. So all I want us to do here is, if you can sit upright if you can, just put one hand on your chest and one hand on your diaphragm, and your diaphragm muscle is just underneath your lowest rib, so on your rib cage. And then I want you to invite you to just Close your eyes, it probably helps the concentration. And all I want you to do is just breathe through the nose. So I want you to become aware of the air. Bring all your attention and awareness to just inside your nostrils. And just start feeling the air flowing into your nostrils. And then flowing out, probably a little bit warmer coming out because it's been around your body. Just follow that airflow in and out of your nostrils. And if you get distracted or go into a story or physical sensation, don't be harsh on yourself. Just bring your attention, awareness fully back to your nostrils and feeling the air going in and out. Again, just go at a pace that's natural for you at the moment. And now I'd like to switch your awareness to your two hands and just noticing which of the two hands is moving. Is it one or is it both? Ideally, your diaphragm muscle hand should move outwards to the front and to the sides as you breathe in. And then as you deflate inside like a little balloon in your diaphragm, your hand should just return to the starting position. And ideally, there should be no movement at all in your chest, because your lungs are filling up slowly and fully, but your chest muscles have nothing to do with the act of breathing in terms of movement. It may be that if your diaphragm muscle has not been used for some time, that actually just trying to locate it and connect with it would be a challenge. That's all we're doing. We're just rewiring and reconnecting with our diaphragm if we've lost it. And if your diaphragm muscle is already getting tired because it hasn't been used regularly, just give yourself a little massage under your ribs. Just give it a little, just to loosen up any soreness or tightness. Now I'd like to invite you to just try and elongate the exhale a little bit. If you can just try and make your exhale just that little bit longer. Just breathing out a little bit longer and slower if you can, and quieter. And perhaps begin noticing how you're feeling as you breathe this way. Any feelings or sensations? Now, just inviting you to bring your awareness back to your nostrils again. And if you've got your eyes closed, just becoming aware of the space you're occupying and where you're in contact with your furniture. Before just gently opening your eyes and returning back to me, please. Next exercise I'd like us to do is, and we'll keep it simple. I was going to do the yoga nidra one, but we'll just do simple. I just want you to breathe through one nostrils. And rather than me telling you when to switch, because we're all at different abilities to nostrils, just breathe through one nostril And then when you're ready, or you're starting to feel a little bit of discomfort's fine. When I work with people, they have to get comfortable with some discomfort, but not a high level of discomfort that is panicky or causing too much anxiety. But just breathe through the one nose. And when you want to switch, just switch to the other nostril. You'll almost certainly find 80% of us will have one nostril at any one point that's clearer than the other. That can switch during the day. It's often referred to as either the feminine and the masculine. One's nostrils feminine, one the other's masculine, or the yin and the yang of our energy levels. So this exercise is really good for balancing our yin and our yang. And using the diaphragm. And if it's a struggle, as I say, it takes getting used to, but this is teaching the brain that actually I've shut my mouth, I'm down to one nostril, I'm absolutely fine, I'm safe, no need to panic, no need to gasp. I've got more than enough air to survive and live healthily and happy. And this is one of the simple exercises I would do, and I would extend the time, and I would do breath holds as well. But this is just a nice little one. Again, just helping the body learn, but also causing an element of relaxation and activating the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic system. And we'll just stop when we're ready. And then return to me, please. And we'll talk about those in a moment. So, so I just want to really close with just a quick promotion stuff that I do. I work with lots of coaches like Alfia and others in these other areas, but I work corporate, team building, individuals one-to-one across these areas. So I just wanted to let you know that before I take any questions, which I think is a good time to finish. And I hope most of that was clear, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand back to, so you've got me here. So if you can all see me. So thank you for your attention. I hope that makes sense. It isn't instinctive to lots of people. You think you need more air, you go the opposite way. You actually reduce the air to increase your oxygen uptake in your body.
That was amazing.
Anyway.
That was amazing, Nigel. Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody else found that. I found it was a lot clearer. You mentioned it was like going to be different on different nostrils, and I did feel a little bit panicky, not just a mild panicky, and just sort of relaxed and breathe more deeply. So you said you take in less oxygen with more effect, less air with more effect then? Yeah. It's like flooding the system. How I refer to it sometimes is, those of us who remember when you had a choke on your car, and almost, if you pulled it out and you messed it up, it would flood and it would mess up the whole chemical mix and the car wouldn't start. That's how I kind of think of it sometimes. It's that's how I visualize it. So yeah, you take more air in, but it ends up you're taking less oxygen into your lungs. It's more wastage, using all that energy up. And with it goes the anxiety, of course, nervous energy, and you're causing inflammation, and you're not getting the maximum blood into your blood system. And then more importantly, because you can have good blood oxygenation, it's when it hits the muscles that the transference needs to go, because that's when it's where it's really needed. So yeah. And is it normal to sort of have that little sort of panicky feeling while your body readjusts to what you're trying to do for yourself? Yeah, it's lots of my clients. Normally, most of my clients take about 5 sessions. In between, they're doing homework, and I check in. And yeah, where they are, I get them to a level that they're uncomfortable, but reassure them.
it's like anything, almost no pain, no gain, but that's not a good phrase to use on this particular call. But it's just that little bit. Yeah, it was like if you were learning to run and you push yourself a little bit harder, shuttle runs, or you go a bit faster, a bit further. It's similar to that, really. You get there, but and I manage it so people are safe, because the last thing I want to do is fall into an anxiety situation, because then it will cause a panic attack, which is the opposite of what you want to achieve, of course.
Definitely. And if anyone wants to ask questions or unmute yourself or put things in the chat, you're very welcome. Dorothy, go ahead.
I'd like to ask a question.
Go ahead, please.
When you say about taping up the mouth, how do you tape the mouth up?
There's two ways. You can get that microporous tape that I used to use. But to be honest with you, if you're someone who, I'm careful. My daughter's epileptic, so she doesn't have it, for example, because if she was sick like she is afterwards, obviously that would cause all sorts. But there's something called myotape. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh,
but
okay.
You literally
and it will stay put, will it, in the night?
It will stay put for most people. If you're very vapor and very wet, it may come off, but most people it stays put. So you just put it like that.
Oh, I see.
And it's kind of neoprylene, that stuff that kind of just, so you can talk, you can drink, you can do stuff, but it just helps keep it closed. Yeah.
Because I do find that I frequently wake up in the morning and my mouth is so dry, and I know I've been breathing through my mouth instead of my nose.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called myotape, so it's myotape.com. So I only stock them with my clients because it's
you can buy it in the chemist, can you?
You can't buy them in the chemist, you have to buy them online.
Oh, I see.
I did see recently online that Boots were doing something very similar, so you might find it in Boots. But
so how do you spell it? M-Y?
myotape.com. myotape.com.
Thank you.
When we finish this talk, all the details that Nigel mentions, I'll be putting the link with the recording, so you'll have all the details.
Oh, okay.
Be able to go straight to whatever.
Silvana.
Hi, yeah, thank you for that. Very, very informative. I'm speaking to Althea today, and she knows I have breathing difficulties. I can't really do a lot of what you asked us to do.
Okay.
You can practically get any air through the bit that's better. And I'm having to breathe through my mouth. It's like leather dry. I'm exhausted. I don't sleep. Just completely blocked. And even this part feels blocked.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's any information on that I could.
We could look at my website, but you probably have to be, I'd have to kind of work with you for a little bit to understand, assess, and then find things that would allow you to do that. You haven't got a deviated septum, have you? That you know of, or no?
No,
okay.
I did have it cauterized quite a few times, and
okay.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
And did it help, or did it not improve it? Because it's mixed.
No, bleeding more.
Yeah, no, sometimes it's like taking tonsils and adenoids out. They make no difference. They make difference for a few weeks, then people got bad breathing all again. You just think, why? But okay, well, if you want, Silvana, obviously contact me. We'll have a bit of a assessment before you commit to anything, and we'll see. I'll see if I can help you for sure. Thank you.
On my path, as it were. So
yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that Licia?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. First of all, are you local to Anthea and us? Wimbledon, Merton, Kingston, or this area?
Yeah, I'm in Kingston, so there's a number of ways I do it. I go to people's houses, or I hire a clinic on the Ham Richmond border for the first session.
Richmond, okay.
Yeah, and then they tend to be Zoom for a couple of sessions, and then maybe the fourth or fifth, I may meet you on Wimbledon Common or somewhere, and we'll do some, depending on how far we progressed, I would maybe get you to do some walking or jogging if you're up to it, if you're somebody who jogs, just to build up the ability to, because you're building up your CO2 threshold, you see. So you need to train we do some whole breaths, or we run with our mouth shut. We might do
Yeah.
some nose holding, but that's further down the line. You don't start off with nose holding running in the first
Yeah.
session. So, yeah.
Mainly, I was interested for my husband.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering if you can do anything for him. He has deviated septum,
Mm-hmm.
hunch, you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, and before he used to still breathe even with the deviated septum. Now he's finding more difficult, and he breathes with his mouth open most of the time, and he snores, and definitely I think he has apnea in the night, because I can hear we cannot sleep together just because of the noise. But the time he falls asleep, I'm there, and I hear he's grasping for air, depending how much stress he is, obviously. So I was wondering if he was going for an operation, but I think now he's basically not trusting the establishment anymore.
Sure.
To go and that. So we were wondering if before he used to breathe even with the deviated septum, so probably something has swollen inside, probably it changed the way he's breathing or something. I don't know if you can do anything in such a situation.
Yeah, well, I do help lots of clients. There's some with sleep apnea or COPD is so far gone that they find it difficult to do the exercises because it can. But yeah, no, I'm sure I can help. There are other tips like don't sleep on your back, sleep on your left-hand side. That's the best thing. I didn't have it on my list. Sleeping on your left-hand side is the best. There's something about the way your organs lay and the way you breathe is better. Sitting up is the best way to sleep. But who wants to sit up? Because you want to think up here, particularly if your partner's down there, one of you is going to get cold or smothered. But yeah, sleeping on your left is a good plan. Sleeping on the back is really bad because you naturally, your mouth and your airways fall open. Right. Yeah. But yeah, I'm sure I can help you, Licia. I would know after a couple of sessions. If he has put the homework in. There's homework between sessions. Yeah, he runs. He can run. He runs quite well, actually. So yeah. Okay, good. So yeah, I will speak to him, and sure. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if I can help, I'd love to try. That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry, can I ask another question? Mm-hmm. I find I've had pneumonia 3 times in the last 3 years. And when we were doing the deep breathing, I find when I'm doing that, I get really, really tired and I start sort of dozing off.
There's 2 things about that. I think one is that it actually really relaxes you. When you slow down and you breathe, it for sure does. So I don't know if
does it increase the lung capacity? If you've had pneumonia, does it increase the lung capacity?
Doing this, it will help heal, depending how far it's gone. With my long COVID clients, I was trying to increase their lung capacity, but it wasn't just that. Some of them needed counselling and other stuff because they were so stressed or had ventilators on their face. So it's a mix of that, but pneumonia is obviously a stressful thing, and having had it even in itself will cause stress and inflammation in the body that might still be sitting there.
Thank you.
From the mental side, but yeah, no, I'm sure we can. Again, we can try. It might be a longer game, but for sure.
Are there any more questions? Would anyone like to ask another question? Ask Nigel anything?
I just asked, did you find the breathing relaxing? The first one, just even slowing down and just through the nose. I
did, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few knots.
It was like getting over that sort of panicky feeling.
Yes, falling asleep with it.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. No, it's good. So if you do that 10 minutes before you go to bed, honestly, if you want music at the side or a guided meditation, but doing the breathing will help slow everything down. it's quite simple for most of us. For those who are really anxious and up here, it's tricky, but everyone can access it. You just need to rewire, retrain. Our brains are neuroplastic, even in our old age, and that part there can relearn.
You have to be careful not to over breathe it though.
Sorry?
You have to be careful not to over breathe it when you're doing that deep breathing.
Well, you're breathing the diaphragm.
Breathing too high, up through the diaphragm, up into the lungs, into the back of the lungs. You don't want
deep breaths. You want it to be, when it says deep means down, it doesn't mean huge breaths. Deep means in the diaphragm. Yeah, you're right, Dorothy. It's just you want nice, calm, slow, quiet breathing. That's all you want. Yeah, you don't need to get more air in. Your body doesn't need it.
Thank you.
Slowing it down then, quiet, slow breathing. And Jackie says that her foot warmed up.
Yeah, probably oxygenating the end of your body. Honestly, when I did the breathing, when I 11 years ago, and I first did it, because the exercise I do, you'll feel your blood, your skin oxygenating more. You'll get more blood flow to the extremities. And I met one person who experienced what I did as well. It improved my eyesight short term by, I'd say, about 20%, because I was getting oxygen to there. So I'm not saying, I'm going to make people blind, but it did for me and one other person, which is only one person in 10 years. But we were discussing one day at a conference, and she said, I went, that's really weird, because I felt that too, but I wasn't going to tell anybody because I think I'm crackers. But it just gets the oxygen and the blood flow to all parts of the body.
It isn't it? And the body will take the oxygen where it's needed. You don't have to sort of, a lot of the time with my thing, people say, do I breathe into the problem? And I'll say, well, no, you breathe in itself, and your body takes over from there. Your body takes it to the right place. It knows where it needs it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You agree with that? Cool.
Yeah, no, you trust. The body is amazing, as we know, despite how much neglect, abuse, and how much we take it for granted. So yeah, I'm sure we've probably all done body scan meditations and what have you, and that is just giving ourselves, our body permission and sending gratitude and healing, because it so deserves it, because we ignore it most of the time. Take it for granted. I'm going to be playing football tonight. I'm going to be so grateful for what it can do for me.
Fantastic. And Silvana was saying that she wants to get to a position where she can get air through her nose, and then she's sure she's going to experience relaxing then. Would that be the right?
Yeah, you will, Silvana, once you've got your nasal breathing. That will be the aim. Absolutely. It's really hard to experience relaxation if you breathe through the mouth. It just is,
Wonderful. And what about snoring? Not that I snore or anything. But what creates snoring? What is that? What's the lying on you mentioned about lying on your back?
Because a lot of snoring is because you're not getting the air into the lungs. So either your tongue, or as you get older, if you put on weight, and this is a thing that's linked as you get older, particularly for post-menopause and stuff as well. If you start to put a little weight on here, it just gets a little bit fatty. It just starts to restrict your airway a little bit, and that causes some air hunger, and then your body starts to whereas if you teach it that it doesn't need the air in the first place, so you haven't got the air hunger and you breathe through your nose, it doesn't cause that issue of airflow and your body getting almost too much air in again and getting that chemical mix messed up. So
what is snoring? Is it your body struggling to grab the air into your body or something?
Yeah, it's your body thinking it needs more air. Yeah, and there's also a vibration thing going on for where your tongue is and where your narrow airways, because you're trying to force air through a very narrow tunnel, as opposed to if you've got a good healthy airway, so you've got a good square jaw and what have you, and you haven't got a tongue that's falling back and what have you, and you're not lying on your back, you've got a airway. It's much easier for the air to flow. It's just like managing a crowd through a narrow space or through a wider space, really. Yeah, it causes vibration and causes stress and causes noise. So yeah.
Thank you. Dorothy, you want to say something?
Can I just ask, please?
Please do, Karen.
My partner, he snores a lot, but he almost stops breathing as well. For it feels like for about 30 seconds. And I sort of like listening then to see if he's still breathing. And then he takes a real deep breath in and starts snoring again.
Yeah, that's almost becoming sleep apnea.
Oh, right. Okay.
Sleep apnea is really not good. A lot of people suffer from it because that will lead to, if you get sleep apnea, there's two consequences of sleep apnea, and don't take this personally, but one of them will be that its cardiovascular system will slow down. And I work with a clinic up the road who do erectile dysfunction, actually, of all things. And sleep apnea is a very common thing that is caused by stress and poor breathing. Sleep apnea will have that impact on your cardiovascular system. They're normally linked. And if you've got sleep apnea, your cardiovascular system suffering, it will lead to other cardiovascular issues. So actually addressing sleep apnea, whether it's through something like this or whether it's through a doctor, is something that's really worth addressing because it doesn't get better.
No, and when I wake up in the morning, he's still asleep. He does it a lot, an awful lot, but he doesn't believe me.
We need to record him then.
That's a good idea. I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
that's the thing with snoring, isn't it? I mean, apparently I snore. I'm sure I don't, but my kids definitely tell me I do. But it doesn't bother you, it bothers the person that, or worries the person that can hear him.
Yeah, though your energy levels and your sleep and lack of sleep will then cause anxiety and depression and stuff. So yeah.
Okay, I will record him. Thank you for that.
Can I just ask one?
Yes, of course. Of course.
Did you say lie on the left, on your left side? Because my friend said, oh, lie on your right side for myself. So I've been lying on my right side or back, but I breathe. Because she said that you cannot, because if you lie on your left, you put pressure on your heart or something. Well, what's the truth?
Yeah, lying on the left side, I have heard it's the way your organs lie, but generally I have seen research and I can't find it, but lying on your left side is beneficial to sleeping. Yeah, right side's okay, left is better, back is a no-no. Some people lie on the front, but don't quite get that. During COVID, they were telling people to lie on the front. I'm not quite sure on what basis, but left is tends to be the best.
Okay. I lie on the back and I'm very comfortable, but I breathe. So maybe it's a different thing.
You may in time though get a conflict, or that may change. If you can sleep on your left, sleep on your left. But if you've got a really bad shoulder and it keeps you awake, you don't sleep on the left.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will try. Thank you.
Yeah, no, hopefully, Alicia. Yeah.
Why shouldn't you sleep on your back though? Sorry, I can't hear you.
It's gone.
There was disturbance in my house. Sorry, one of my daughters was, I got special needs, was kicking off a little bit. You tend to lie back because, and then your mouth will naturally tend to fall open, and your throat airway will start slightly to get restricted, and it's more likely that your tongue will.
But if you have more pillows behind your head can't fall back then, can it?
No, if you sit up, as I say, sitting up is the best position. So when I was really poorly 11 years ago, I had 2 weeks where I just sat up in bed and just, literally straight, and that's the best position to sleep because your diaphragm's not crushed or restricted anyway, and my lungs were fine. And so just at the end of the day, if you're comfortable and you sleep all right, it's fine. You don't snore, just and you don't wake up. But on the whole, it is better to not sleep on your back, on the whole.
On average, probably, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, right, Silvana. Yeah, sleep what's most comfortable for you. Yeah.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Right, I'm gonna have to shoot myself. Oh, Althea, you're on.
Thank you very much, Nigel and Althea.
You're welcome. Do you want to, Kathy would like to ask a question. Would that be okay, Nigel?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I didn't really want to ask a question. I just wanted to reiterate something you said. I was a cardiac nurse, and we used to encourage patients to sit up in the beginning and then eventually to lie on their left side as well, for all the reasons that you said. But
cool.
Now that I am older and wiser, I sleep on an inclined bed.
Okay, yeah.
So, and I find that has helped my breathing no end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I can see that if you're sleeping at that angle, or better that angle, it helps. And that is best with a seat. But yeah, no, definitely helps. Cool. Thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing, Kathy. That was very interesting. Thank you. So let's bring it to a close then. And if you do have more questions for Nigel, you want to get in touch and have a one-to-one, or just get in contact with him for information or whatever you want to ask. I'm going to put this recording together I'm going to send you this recording. There'll be links to get in touch with Nigel, and the things that he mentioned, I'll put those there too. I just want to say, Nigel, thank you so much for sharing. I always love these talks, and it's so interesting, and I always discover things I didn't realize I didn't know. And really helpful. Thank you so much, and I hope that it was helpful to everybody here as well. And do get in contact with Nigel. As you can see, he does forest bathing and one-to-one sessions, and to help your breathing, whatever your concerns are, do get in touch. So thank you so much, Nigel. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Althea. Thanks for the invite, and thanks everybody for coming. It's lovely to meet you all. And if I hear from you, I'll do whatever I can to help. So brilliant. All right. Thanks again.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much, everybody.
I'll bring that to a close. Thank you. Bye for now. Bye.